What is going on, guys? Joey here, and I just wanted to, before we get into the video, let you guys know that I'm bringing the workshop back. It's been a year. It's been a busy year, but we have a little bit of downtime, so we're gonna try to get a couple workshops in before the end of the year. It's gonna be this Saturday, October 5th, 10 a.m. Los Angeles time, so West Coast time or Pacific Standard Time. If you guys are interested, flextsys@gmail.com. You could also DM me on Instagram if you can't remember that email. I will put it somewhere in the comments down below. But I just wanted to put that out there before we get into the video. So yes, the next workshop, it's going to be this Saturday, 10 a.m. And if you're a current Flex member, you're already on the team, there is a discount. It's gonna have some new stuff in there, particularly one section. It's probably gonna be around 20 to 30 minutes. So if you've taken it before, in addition to the questions that the custom questions that you can submit, there will be value in there for those, even if you've already taken it in the past. So, all right. That being said, let's get right into the video. You guys are probably not gonna be able to read this because it is just like too small, but basically our boy Ina, the deadlift master, made a very interesting post on Are You a Specialist? He said some things in there. I'll read some of it, but what I really wanted to emphasize was one particular section where he says, "Do you suck at a lift now? Too bad. You're likely going to suck at it forever, relatively. Now, what does he mean by that? I mean, I think he's a great example. His deadlift is like 40% of his total, maybe a little more, 40 to 43% of his total. Um, his bench is about 20 to 24%, and his squat is about 34 to 37%. I think one of those percentages is like where he started, and the other percentage is like what it is now. But basically, what he's saying is if you have, one lift that's really, really far ahead of the others, in your mind, it might make sense to try to like bring those others up to make it on par with the other lift. But in reality, it's probably not what's actually going to happen. The percentages might move a little bit, but it's probably going to trend all up together. Um, I'll break it down a little bit for you guys. So he says, are you a specialist? If your squat is 37%, your bench is 24%, and your deadlift is 43% of your total, you might just be a specialist because it's a higher percentage than 75% of lifters, meaning that the ratio for this particular person, I think it's himself, would indicate that he's biasing like one lift more than 75% of other lifters. Um, in the next section, when he says, "Do you suck at a lift? Too bad. You're likely going to suck at it forever." That means like Ina deadlifts like 800 pounds for reps. It is unlikely that he is going to squat 800 pounds for reps. I think I could almost certainly say that at this body weight, he will not double 800 pounds on the squat. Um, never say never, but I am very certain that that is probably not going to happen because his deadlift, um, he's just so built for the deadlift that if you have if you think about it like this, you have so much height, right? If you have like 5'10", let's say somebody's 5'10", their torso is going to be a certain length, their legs are going to be a certain length, and their arms are going to be a certain length. Within that, like those parameters, you got to kind of bias like one thing over the other. Sometimes you get someone who's like kind of even all around and they're pretty good at everything. You get some people that like super short torso, super long legs, super long arms. You know what I mean? They're probably gonna have an awkward squat, awkward time squatting. It just is. It just kind of is what it is. So he's saying that, and I've said this in the past. I've done videos talking about how if you stop focusing on the lift that's like so behind and you just like try to build everything together, like try to, for me it was the deadlift, right? Like my deadlift when it got to a certain point, because when I moved up to the 120s, my legs got so big it was just a pain to really put a lot of effort like mentally into thinking about that lift. But if I just focus on squat, my total went up, which he actually does talk about here. He says if you want to boost your total, focus on getting your squat up. Most improvements in the total seem to come from the squat followed by the bench, then the deadlift. The reason why I personally think that is because when lifters are gaining weight or building muscle, the squat and the bench tend to benefit from the actual like change in leverage, like the change in size, as opposed to the deadlift, where if you get significantly bigger, I mean, lifters tend to go up in weight classes in their career. Yes, you can go down sometimes, but like usually they tend to go up. So it makes sense that he's saying that, because the squat will, one, it's probably going up like almost like if your squat is like 40%, or sorry, let's say like 37% of your total, whatever, and then your bench is like 20ish percent, they're probably going to go like this, but the squat is just a bigger number. um it's like to go up this like 2 percentage points for the squat, it could be something like almost double what, well, not double, maybe like 1.5, you know um in terms of like straight kilos than like your bench, right? So that totally makes sense. Um, and what he's saying there, so like building your squat, obviously. I also think squat's pretty. I'd say it's like, I don't want to say it's easy to build, but maybe I feel that it's easy because for me, it's just always been something that came naturally. You're also dealing with a lot of big muscle groups that are all growing at the same time, so you're gonna get like that boost. Okay, so moving on here. He says additional observation. There's another part where he kind of explains like how he came up with those numbers. But then he says additional information. Women tend to have a higher percentage of their total come from the deadlifts compared to men. Men make up for this difference by having higher percentage come from bench. Squat is similar to both men and women. My reasoning for that could potentially be that generally, not always, of course, like if you're like girls are a little bit shorter than guys sometimes, not always, but they tend to be. If you have, it's very rare that if you have a family, for example, of like two boys and two girls, that the two girls are taller than the two boys, right? Just like stating an observation. So being a little shorter to the ground, the deadlift starts on the ground. You're going to be closer to the ground. That could be a reason. I'm not entirely sure. Um, this is like to say women. That's like broad. That's everything, right? If you took the average of all the women in powerlifting and all the men in powerlifting, I mean, I think the men would probably be taller than the women. Although sometimes I question that. But this is me just trying to. Oh, it also could be that women are more um, possibly like genetically predisposed to having like bigger lower body muscles, big lower body muscles. So if you have big legs, then I mean it could make sense. Men make up for this by having a higher percentage of their total come from bench. Again, men, testosterone, we're going to have like broader shoulders. It's going to help you on the bench. That totally makes sense. Just like bigger arms, right? The arms I think is something that men generally are going to have like more brolic looking arms than women, right? So that kind of makes sense. This stuff is like kind of neither here nor there. It's just like an observation that he made. But I think the takeaways from this post can be, if you're a man or a woman and you're seeing something like this, it can help kind of explain sort of discrepancies that you might have between your lifts. It can also make you feel, a little, maybe like you're not so like I want to say obsessive about a certain lift when, oh, okay, it makes sense that this lift is better than that lift because of XYZ. But I really, really wanted to hammer home and leave you guys with the part where he said, if you suck at a lift, that's just Ina's way of talking. But if you have one lift that's like lagging behind another lift, it's likely going to be like that forever, relatively, meaning your 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 squat, if it's like behind your bench and you're not like really going up in weight class, or sorry, your deadlift, it's unlikely that your squat is going to catch up to your deadlift. Now, if you're super early on in your career and you haven't really been training right, I mean, all of this stuff kind of goes out the window. But if you've been training for at least 5 years, I think a lot of your ratios might be set. And that makes sense. I know um, for me, my deadlift and my squat were like this, right? And then once I moved up, it like my deadlift went like that and my squat went like that. And that's just maybe like something specific to me, right? Also, we got better equipment when the SBD belt came out, when the new knee sleeves came out. All of those things are factors. I used to squat in the Titan singlet, which was I felt at least it felt supportive, but it gave me a mental boost. So these are all things that, I think, um, I guess the takeaway using me as an example is that like there's going to be exceptions to everything. And when people say you're likely gonna suck at it forever, as powerlifters, we have ego. We want to be like, no, I'm gonna prove that wrong. Da da da. But it's unlikely that like I think it would be hard pressed to find someone who like they've been training for 5 years, consistent powerlifting, and they had their ratios set, right? And then their deadlift just gapped up another 5 to 8% on their squat. I just don't think that's gonna happen. I literally don't even think um now, unless you change your technique, like from a sumo to a conventional or something like that, then I could see it possibly be happening, or vice versa. But yeah, so the main takeaway is if you have a lift that's behind the others, it's not really that big a deal. Some people are going to genetically just have like a crazy good squat and their deadlift is going to be less than their squat, and people are going to like comment on it and point it out, but that doesn't mean you need to lose your mind over it. It's not really a big deal. It doesn't even matter. Just keep training and keep pushing things forward and all your lifts will come up. And honestly, like these observations are cool to make, and I think it can help people that are very observant. Maybe you're like a statistics type of person and you like to observe things like that, and it may make more sense to you. But at the end of the day, if you're training and you're dosing stress correctly and you're deloading and things like that, and you're allowing your body to progress the way it should, then I mean none of this stuff really matters. I will say though that if you notice that you're getting a negative sort of thought or mindset towards anything in your lifting, like anything regarding like, man, every time I deadlift it's just like mentals, like bad mentals or whatever. You need to fix that. And a post like this, um, and watching my videos could potentially help you kind of get over that sort of like pain of having like one lift that's just like significantly behind the others. Anyway, guys, I hope you're able to take something away from this video. If not, maybe it was at least a bit entertaining. This Saturday, October 5th, 10 a.m. Los Angeles time, workshop. If you want to know how to get in, flextsis@gmail.com. You can DM me. However, just reach out to me. Let me know that you want to get in somehow, and I'll make it happen. Um, I will probably announce it a couple more times, and that'll be it. All right, guys. Thank you so much. See you in the next one. Peace.